We are calling the Community Preservation Committee meeting to order on Thursday, June 11th at 7:06. I am the Vice Chair, Kristen LaVault. We've had some unexpected schedule changes this evening. We do have quorum. Claire Reynolds is on the line, so we got thrown off a little bit because of the unexpected changes in terms of the presentation tonight on CPC. This is our annual presentation. If you've been here in the past, we do look at the slides each year and refresh them as needed, but not a lot of significant changes. There may be in the future, we can touch on that a little bit on some changes that some select board members would like to see, but in terms of our contributions, but we'll touch on that. We're all just going to kind of, none of us walked in here. I'm going to be fully transparent, prepared to be the ones presenting the slides, but we know this. So we're just going to, we're just going to all chime in and as needed. So just bear with us a little bit if we are choppy. And then after the presentation, we'll take questions. Certainly about the application. We are presenting CPC articles on the upcoming fall special town meeting. I think we'll get into maybe a little bit more detail on those applications. And there still is a very small opportunity to submit an application, but I don't think we're anticipating that. After that, we will again take any questions. And then we do also have a brief agenda this evening. We did consolidate it a bit given the change in attendance, but we'll touch on each of the applications that are coming forward this fall. So with that, we'll jump into the presentation itself to talk about the purpose of the committee, the composition, and our responsibilities. Great. And Ellen, oh, here we go. And Ellen's going to take us away and then Betty can jump in.
Great. Thank you, Kristen. So as Kristen said, this is our opportunity to share a little bit about who the CPC is, what the CPA is, and kind of our role in the community, working with lots of other boards and committees. So what we'll be doing tonight is going through just quickly the membership of the CPC, who all of us are up here and kind of the different groups that we represent. A little bit about the history of the Community Preservation Act in town, how our budget works, a little bit about some of the projects that town meeting has approved in the past, and then talk about our application process for the coming cycle with some time for questions. So the CPC has members that represent a number of different boards and committees in town. And so we have Kristen LaVault here, who is our vice chair representing Recreation. Grant represents the Historical Commission. I'm Ellen Maria from the Affordable Housing Trust. Katie Berry's from the Housing Authority. And we have, okay. And we also have at-large members. So that's Claire Reynolds, who's here. We have an open at-large seat, as well as open seats from the Open Space Preservation Commission and the Conservation Commission. So if you know anyone on those committees or out in the community who's interested, we're looking for members.
And Lisa from planning, I think.
Yes, who's just not on the slide. But...
Oh, she's at the top. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. And Lisa's at the top of the slide, who is the chair from the planning board. Great. So a little bit about what the CPA is. So this is a tool that's available to communities across the state to help preserve open space, historical sites in town, create community housing, and preserve and develop outdoor recreational facilities. And so, as you can see, it also helps strengthen local economies, helps kind of reinvest back in town, and really kind of helps support all the things that make each of the cities and towns great across our state. So the history of the CPA in town, this was passed at a town meeting in 2003. So each city or town needs to vote to adopt this if they want to, and you can vote to adopt it at different levels of a surcharge. So Southborough has a 1% surcharge, and we'll look at the numbers of that in a little bit. And money began coming in from that in 2003. So we're now in 20 plus years of the CPA in town, and the first projects were approved at 2005 town meeting. So the duties of our committee in kind of overseeing the the CPA process is to create an application as well as the criteria and process for funding projects and then overseeing them kind of to completion and then often beyond that as well. Many projects have some type of long-term conservation restriction or deed restriction, preservation restriction. And so the CPC helps ensure that kind of those provisions of all those restrictions are being met. Our committee also reviews the applications and then makes recommendations about projects for town meeting. So we'll spend the time with applicants, first making sure that kind of everything they're proposing meets the criteria of the CPA, that it's an eligible project. And then if it is also eligible and kind of meets the goals of the CPC as well, we can recommend a project to town meeting, but the ultimate decision of whether a project goes forward is made by the town meeting voters. We also work to develop an annual budget, a CPA plan for the town. We hold an annual public forum, which I'm attending right now, and thank you for that. And then also work to educate groups and important stakeholders in town about the CPA and some of the guidance that comes in from the state about how it works. So as we said, we have a 1% CPA surcharge, and that for the current fiscal year works out to almost $128 annually in sum for the average home. And so the way that works is if we look at the average single family home in town, which is assessed at just over $990,000, there's an exemption for the first $100,000 of that amount. That brings us down to $891. We look at our current tax rate of $14.36 per thousand. So that works out to $12,000 and about $800,000. And then 1% of that is the $127.95 that goes into the CPA. And so that is, again, at the average, what it costs each household in town. And as it says, there are exemptions for seniors, for low-income residents that are overseen by the town assessor. And so one of the key things about the CPA is how the money that comes into the town needs to be divided up, and then how that money can be spent on projects. So there's what's known as kind of the buckets of CPA funding. And so that is open space, historic preservation, and community housing. So whenever money comes into any community CPA funds, 10% automatically has to go into each of those three buckets. Another 5% of that money can go towards administration. So that's the support of our consultant, Freddie, and that's paying dues to the Community Preservation Coalition, which is a statewide group that gives really important guidance to local committees. And then the rest goes into what's called the budgeted reserve, which isn't really a reserve, even though it's called that. That's basically what's available to fund projects in any of those three buckets, to pay bonds. So a lot of our bigger projects do have bond payments over time. And you'll also note that recreation is an allowable CPA project type, but it doesn't have its own bucket. So all recreation projects come out of that budgeted reserve, 65%. So we'll look at our current balances as of July 1st of this year. Again, you can see each bucket has a certain amount of money based on the projects that town meeting has approved over time, the bond payments that are ongoing. And then the kind of final fund balance just needs some final certification from the town accounting. But you can see kind of how those different buckets vary depending on what projects are still kind of being paid for. And so just to look back over the 20 plus years that the CPA has been in town, the local surcharge collected from town taxpayers is about $6.5 million. There is also the state trust fund distribution. So the state matches at a certain percent each year what towns and cities bring in. And that changes each year as more communities across the state adopt the CPA. That percentage has gone down a bit, but that's currently at almost 17%. So that's, a higher return than you're going to find anywhere else. So the state in total over those 20 plus years has contributed about $2.5 million. So that brings us just over $9 million in total CPA funds. So we're not going to go through all of this, but it is really, we're proud. We're members of the current CPC, but there have been so many volunteers over the 23 years that the CPA has been here that has, worked with all of the different stakeholders in town and brought these projects forward that town meeting has supported. So just a few of the examples of projects that have been completed using CPA funds, the playground and tennis and basketball courts at the Fayville Playground, purchase of the Halloran property to preserve that as open space, funding for the golf club and a few different ways, including some redesign work, restoration of the old burial ground, a lot of historic preservation, so of documents through the town clerk, the perpetual preservation restriction at the Burnett House down the road here, work that the planning board and planning department has overseen on our town's open space data, again, additional document presentation, preservation, funding for the Affordable Housing Trust, preservation of the Chestnut Hill Farm, the Flag School, the South Union School. So you can see a lot of the important buildings and areas and kind of all the things that make Southborough. You can see many of them have been touched by CPA funds. I won't go through all of them, but that is, everything that you see here. Library funds, lights at the Mooney Field and the Mary Tennis Courts, All Wars Memorial, creation of 2 affordable homes, funding for the St. Mark's Bell Tower, the townhouse that we're sitting in. So a little bit about the application process. So there is an application up on our webpage, along with the CPC handbook that really kind of takes everyone through how that application process works. And so, as we said, projects are kind of vetted by the CPC, and there's a lot of ongoing conversations with the boards and committees and individuals who put those applications in. And then that kind of works towards an eventual potential article at the spring town meeting. So we have a deadline of September 15th of this year for any interested projects to then come up at what will likely be usually an April town meeting. So a few of the other steps, once an application is together, we look for the group or the committee that put it together to present the project to CPC to come in and talk to us about it so we can better understand the goals, the vision, how it's all going to work. And then there's kind of an ongoing review process between then and town meeting. So to work with the CPC to answer any project related questions, there's often a lot of back and forth looking for some additional documents or more information. And that's just a really important part of the process to kind of get everyone on the same page and put forward the best project possible. And then we also look for project proponents to be available to answer any project related questions at town meeting. These are CPC articles. So our committee with Freddie's support works to put the articles together and we'll move them, but really do look for help from the proponents where needed to answer some of the questions that come up. Often do a lot of kind of the community engagement ahead of town meeting to build support for that project. So it really is kind of a partnership between the CPC and the project proponents. And so these are just a few highlights from our application, which is up on the town website. So we are looking for both the amount of funding that's requested from the CPA, as well as the total cost of the project. So to get an understanding of, is this the only funding source you anticipate for a project? Is this being used as a match or to get a match, or is there independent funding, kind of how that's all working? We also need to know kind of which of the 4 categories this project falls into, because they all have the kind of different requirements. So that's all broken down as highlighted here. In terms of the eligibility, there's kind of really defined standards that come from the state about the types of projects that can happen in each one of these buckets. And so we really try and stress that ahead of time to, it is sort of a lengthy application process. So, and we're happy to answer questions if you're not sure if the project you're thinking about is eligible. But we don't want anyone to put a lot of time and thought into an application for a project that doesn't meet the state requirements. And so this is really the critical chart that we encourage people to try and decipher. It's a lot of yeses and nos. So again, we're here to help navigate through this. But so there are kind of the different, right, the 4 different buckets across the top. Recreation's not a bucket, the 4 different kind of project categories. And then the different activities go down the side. So acquire, create, preserve, support, rehabilitate, and restore. And so in kind of different combinations, these activities are allowed or not allowed for all of these different types of projects. So again, there's more information on our site, through the state, through the Community Preservation Coalition about what exactly does it mean to preserve open space versus support open space, and what is the difference and why is one allowed versus not. So those are all questions we can work through with people. And again, just highlighting that we're really looking to try and understand the finances of projects. We know this can often be hard to nail down, especially now. Costs can change, and CPC always works with proponents to put in a pretty healthy project contingency. But we're seeing more and more that's still sometimes not covering the full cost of projects that we all thought would be covered even a year or 2 ago. So just trying to really encourage as firm budgets as possible, really backed up with quotes, with bids, with estimates as much as possible to try and get as much of that funding clear and understood going in. Another thing that we have been thinking a lot about is the maintenance kind of long term. So if the committee is recommending to town meeting to put town money towards something, that's a finite bucket of money. And so how will that building, fields, document, whatever it is, how will that be maintained over the long term after the CPA funding window? So we're looking for more details on how that will be budgeted, who will be doing that. Is it the committee that's the proponent? Is it the town facilities department or DPW, making sure that that communication is open, that DPW knows if your committee is saying that they'll be responsible for that maintenance. So just trying to make sure there's a clear path for that. And so again, just reiterating some of the things that we're looking for as we're working with groups. So at town meeting, one of the key things that we're looking for is that there's a clear schedule and proposed timeline, and to be able to kind of have just a clear picture of how long the project will take, how much it's going to cost when that goes to town meeting. And so this is, again, one of the charts that's available on the website through the coalition that helps, this in particular for historical projects, to kind of help you walk through the steps of figuring out if a project is eligible. And so there are certain requirements, again, within each of these categories that a project has to meet to be considered a historical something, a historical building, structure, vessel, property that can then be eligible. So again, if you're thinking about a historical project, this is something that we and the Historical Commission gets involved in and helps kind of guide through that process. And then we just have some pictures of some of the projects funded around town with all of our CPA funds. So the South Union School and the historic preservation of that building, as well as its designation on the National Register of Historic Places. The South Union School Playground right next door. Again, the South Union School Playground. Restoration work over at the library. You can see the steps there under construction. And then the sign going back up top, the completed facade and stairs. We have the lights at Mooney Field over next to Finn, and then lights at the tennis courts at Neary. The Chestnut Hill Farm, so that's a perpetual conservation restriction that's in place through CPA funding. And then the purchase of the Halloran property, again, to maintain that as open space. the preservation restriction on 84 Main Street, the Burnett House. And then some support for a Boy Scout Eagle project. To work on the sand volleyball courts, which are also over at Neary. Restoration at the Memorial Playground, the pickleball courts, which I've heard have gotten a lot of use. And yeah, that's a lot of me talking. So I'm very happy to hear questions from anybody, either about the presentation, the process, or about any projects that you're thinking about.
So Tommy, you showed up September 15th, that's for a spring town meeting.
Yes.
But the things on tonight's agenda are for a fall town meeting, so they have an earlier deadline?
Yeah, so we very rarely bring projects forward at a fall town meeting. Everything that we're considering, and I don't jump in, for fall town meeting are projects that we had been working with proponents on already. And so we're having these conversations the end of last summer, through the fall and winter, and just for whatever reason, we're not quite ready for this most recent spring town meeting. And so those are, I would say, the only projects we're really considering for
Yeah.
the fall, and everything else. I mean,
That's, I had a note here to clarify myself from
Yeah.
before you kicked off, by the way. Thank you. That was
Yeah,
awesome.
sure.
But there is no window open for applications for the fall, to clarify myself. We do have revised applications where we have a June 30th deadline
June 30th.
for the ones that we're going to discuss tonight. So we'll touch on each of those because everybody's got some revisions to submit. And then it's the September 5th, but the 2027 annual town meeting process is also opening. We're in the process of finalizing the application. We review it every year, and then getting the town page updated. So that's what we're working on right now. September 15th is the deadline for the new applications. And I know that seems early to people, and I think a lot of folks in this room can appreciate we're backing into the budget, we're backing into review with the select board, getting the ATM articles finalized. So we really do take the time, and Freddie's a huge assistance with that, to spend the time with the applicants. But that's why that September 15th deadline is so key. But it's never too early. So if people have ideas of anything they want to do, apply for this spring or 5 years from now, it's our goal to have, more of an outline plan in terms of ideas and what people are looking at, instead of kind of seeing what we get every year. So as soon as people have ideas, we encourage you to bring it here, because the sooner you come, the more we can offer help. And again, Freddie has just a wealth of knowledge, so it's just best for everybody. So like I said, and Ellen mentioned, we are going to move into the formal agenda for this evening, provided there aren't, which we will talk about the fall town meeting articles. But before we kind of close the public forum, I want to first ask the committee and Freddie if anyone wants to add anything about CPC in general to the presentation.
Well, I think we have public attendees here, so it'd be good to hear from them.
Yep.
That's a chance to hear public feedback about potential ideas or projects coming forward. So I'd appreciate if anyone would like to speak. I think that'd be helpful for us.
Oh, and Claire, I'm sorry. Katie, do you have anything you want to add before we open it up?
Thank you.
Okay, and Claire?
I'm good, thank you.
Freddie? If we're gonna have people talking in, can you turn that down? To leave. Oh, I'm loud.
No, not you. It's the people calling in
Oh, okay. I'm sorry for the people on the line, though. I know I'm loud.
the other way.
So before we close, then let me just look out either online or in the audience. Sure. Do you mind asking up here?
Eddie's on.
I think they're just on, yeah.
Debbie Demuria, 8 Flat Road. I chair the Master Plan Implementation Committee, but I'm not speaking on behalf of them, but I'm definitely influenced by it. Some of the things we've been thinking about on Master Plan Implementation is how, basically we're charged with tracking progress on master plan goals and recommendations over, a period of time. We're almost at the point we're going to be looking at forming another master plan committee, because we want to try to get the next vision going for in time for 2030. Okay, But the 2021 Master Plan Committee, or the group that put that master plan together, envisioned funding for the different goals and recommendations, and there's 201. And, so recently, we took a look and put sort of in our trackers, we took the funding source that was envisioned by the original committee and, married it up with the goal. And CPA funding is in a lot of those goals. So I was just wondering what your thoughts were on, working on that with the master plan implementation committee,
Yeah.
or taking a look to see where did there was a lot of work that was done, like years of public forums
Yep.
and research and surveys that formed those opinions. So I would hate for it to be lost. But I'm looking to this committee to see, is there interest to look back at that and see, where are maybe some priorities that you may take
Yeah.
from that?
So-
And how could that happen? Would you need the help of the MPIC? Or is it something you do on your own?
Well, I think that we welcome any opportunity to collaborate with other committees. I think we could all agree that we're going to do better the more we communicate. I can speak, and then we'll let everyone go from a recreation perspective, that whatever's in that master plan is also reflected in our capital plan, which to the best of our ability, we've communicated to the CPC. So we make an effort to make sure, obviously, they all align. This year, we had to shift things around, priorities because of NERI. But what we actually did was we went to the master implementation plan and said, okay, we can't do these field projects, for the foreseeable future because we don't know what's going to happen. But what else could we move forward? And from that, looking at the master implementation plan, we said, well, people really want water, something sort of water feature. And we know, and I won't go down that road now, but we took that directly to be like, okay, are we meeting the needs of what people are asking, what the community has said they want? That being said, I think that it makes perfect sense for us to be doing that checks and balances because, are we doing that across the board? And are we keeping each one updated as we shift our priorities?
Yeah, and you're representing that one committee, but
Right.
there's others that just are not doing what your committee's doing. So I'm looking to CPC to ask, would you do that? Instead of instead of historical, instead of open space, would you do that? Are you a proactive board, or are you, the planning and permitting boards have the same issue, right? They're reactive because something's in front of them, but it's our job to make sure that we're forming in shaping the community. And I just heard from the presentation that is very much a part of your charge. And so if you're a reactive board, you're only looking at what's before you. But we have, years of research that with community input
Yeah.
that have said like what they want, and it's in the master plan. So like, I'm really happy that you're doing that. But I can just say, I'm not sure because I haven't looked across it, but how will we prioritize this?
Well-
How can it work? Like, I'm not even sure how it could work, but I'm wondering if this committee would want to take a look at it.
So I'm going to give you my 2 cents and then pass it on to because everybody represents the committee here, so they can speak to how they use the master plan or don't use it. I will say that I think it's putting a lot on the CPC for us to proactively have to go out and keep tabs on every single area of the master plan and what the priorities for. I do think it's not, again, this is a gut reaction. We'd obviously have to discuss, put it on a future agenda and discuss as a committee. But again, my gut reaction is that we really rely on each committee to kind of keep that alignment to their one area. And to your point, we could potentially find a different way to work more proactively with each committee to reach out and say, hey, well, really, that's what this public forum is for too. Because if we put that kind of oversight on the committee, I think that's a lot of different committees and commissions and moving pieces. That's my initial reaction, but I'm going to pass it over to Grant.
Should get my microphone ready then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's a very useful idea. We are supposed to create a 5-year plan ourselves, which we have not done. And I think we can oftentimes feel on the back foot in terms of new applications coming in or unexpected applications. And so having a sense of what might be coming down the pike would be useful. In terms of, I don't know how those determinations were made back in 2020 or 2021 in terms of the potential funding sources, but I think it would be useful to have a conversation of maybe if you can send over like the list of which ones are CPA were identified as potential CPA fundable, and then maybe we can have a joint meeting or something going through them and saying, oh, that, somebody at the time thought that was CPA fundable, but it clearly isn't because of the regulations, whereas this one might be or something. And then from there, in terms of the way that we work, typically I think always we rely on applications. So it would essentially, I think it's useful to identify the goals and potential applications, but I think we would need from there, I think that would help facilitate actually soliciting applications from the relevant committees or departments who might not know that CPA is an option for them. So that's my initial take.
I agree with that, Grant. I think the CPC can't be proactive in terms of, putting together our own projects, but I think there could be an opportunity to work with the Master Plan Implementation Committee to identify and kind of focus in on some of the areas that were identified in the past and make sure that, the committees and the departments that are responsible for those know that those projects were prioritized in the master plan, know that they might be CPA funded. So I think it could be more in terms of additional outreach. And as Kristen said, kind of this forum is one of the main ways we do that. And it's great to see everyone here tonight. There's often not a lot of engagement with this forum. So I think we're looking for additional ways to reach out to folks and let them know that this funding is here and what it can do. And so I think that might be another good kind of inroad to that, to be able to reach out and say, this is in the master plan, this is CPA fundable. Let's talk about it. So I appreciate that suggestion.
Yeah, I agree with everyone. I'd have to look at our charge. I don't think we're proactive, that we have the bandwidth for that. I know that we do send out a lot of information about when the application is open. Here's the application. We want all your ideas. I love the idea of collaborating. I'd be open to a joint meeting to go over like some of the top goals and if it's a, CPC fund or CPA fundable, and then, help where we can. But I think as far as being proactive, that's a lot for us. I feel like there's a lot going on with the applications that we have now, but I love the idea.
Thank you. And
I'm sorry, just real quick, do you mind, Claire?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, just to follow on with what Katie said, I totally agree that I think CPC has done everything that they can to publicize what it is that they do, what they offer. And it's up to anybody looking for funding to contact. To do any more outreach is potentially outstretching the money that we could possibly be getting when you look at it from a financial standpoint. Thank you.
Claire, thanks for that. I wasn't really thinking about the outreach so much as the collaboration with other committees. I mean, I think just mentioning that the master plan, we're going to make a recommendation to the planning board to start forming a master plan committee probably next year, because we know it takes 2 to 3 years, because the last one. So by 28, we should have a new I would think a new master plan committee. And I mean, that might be a great time to start thinking about what the town really wants, and maybe kind of go at the next level into the funding and take a look at those projects or goals and recommendations where they're, maybe they didn't get done, or maybe they're ongoing or something like that. But, could we do something more collaboratively around the ones that have already been identified, and especially the ones that are going to be possibly moved to, continue. I didn't mean to stretch this committee in any way. I'm just trying to pressure test whether there's a, possibility to collaborate. And I would say master plan is tracking it, so it's really not our charge either. But we're very motivated to see some of these projects move. And we've been looking, there's a lot of movement on, 201 goals and recommendations. But we frequently take a look at other towns to see what they're doing. And some towns, for example, the little master plan implementation have like a little budget just to help out here and there. We've considered asking for that. And other ones work collaboratively with their boards and committees. And so, you know, that's something I think that we might be taking a look at to see what we might be able to do. And others. Thank you.
I just, do you mind real quick? I didn't give Freddie a chance to weigh in.
Yes, hi. And I'm going to speak not from the consultant role, but from the role of the Chair of the Open Space Preservation Commission, who, and also having been on the CPC for a long time, and before I became the consultant. And I would say that long time ago, the CPC determined, because there's different models, and they determined that they were project reviewers and implementators, and they were not creating projects. They weren't not developing their own projects. So, and that has, you know, committees, you know, as turnover happens, things change, but that has stayed steady. And the workload, I mean, is really, really heavy for the committee. It, you know, think September 15th and, you know, how to get to a, you know, annual town meeting in, what is that, April? And we don't have the information you need going up to the warrant, going out to print. And it's not on because the CPC is not working nonstop since then. It's just the way budgeting and projects go. So it's a lot of work on the committee's behalf to get these projects before town meeting. And then the saying that comes to mind is you can't lead a horse to water. It's like you have funding, you tell people about it. There's projects that the master plan has identified, but you need the committees to do the groundwork, or some town department or somebody to do that and bring it to the CPC. And for the Open Space Commission, Preservation Commission, we almost every single meeting, we go through what our requirements or goals are in the master plan. And, you know, the biggest thing is to purchase and provide, I shouldn't say purchase, but find a way to acquire more land for open space. And it's a big expense, and we're always looking at it, but those things don't come around frequently. So we keep working on that. And the reality is there's not a lot of, some of these projects that might be in the master plan are not necessarily CPA fundable. And I think there might have been some misunderstanding. I'd have to go through the whole, where the funding source is, because honestly, you don't really look at that if you can't do the project. And the committees themselves are, a lot of them are stretched thin, and they're working on one project and they bring it forth. So I think if the implementation committee wants to go through and see all the projects that you have for each committee or department, and then bring those to them before the application process and say, here's a project, do you think you want to work on it? You know, here's the timeline for the CPC, and you should come to the annual presentation and be thinking 5 years out, you know? So there's a thought too.
Well, and one thing to take away from what you said too, which makes perfect sense, is right up front before we finalize the master plan, there should be a feasibility check where, you know, we're not going to go down in nitty gritty detail, but come to a meeting and say, you know, this is what we're thinking in our master plan would be CPC eligible. At least let us give it a sniff test before finalizing it in the master plan. Like that makes perfect sense, right? And then again, I'll go back to, I think there's some responsibility on the various members, because everyone's required to put someone on the master plan committee. I think that person really should be that bridge to make sure that right's talking to the left.
I was going to suggest one final thing I had in my note, that the committee could consider, because they're going to be looking at the application that's online now is last year's, so there'll be minor, at least the dates update. They could add a question about, you know, is this part of the master plan? You know, make people think about that when they're looking at it, and discuss how you would phrase that. Not like you're, you know, like you maybe, not like you're going to get extra points because they don't do points, but on that idea, you know, and that then they could also say this was a master plan recommended project.
I think we-
Oh,
sorry.
sorry.
Just curious, I think we do have a question in there now about that covers the master plan in that way, and also kind of the other relevant plans in town. So is this project in alignment with goals in the master plan, or the open space region plan, or the recreation plan? And so, yeah, I think it's good to make sure that those things are
Maybe make it, I was thinking more specific, you know, or calling it out a little bit more.
Tie it. You can tie.
I'll also just note, I think this is the right time to have this conversation, right? So, you know, there's a few months, it's just opening now, the window. So there's a few months to solicit potential applications. If we can get a joint meeting or something in this window, I think that would be nice. But, you know, it's good to start thinking about this now because essentially we have 2 or 3 months to solicit applications by September, or, you know, work with departments and committees to get those applications in by mid-September.
I'll just say this other thing, though, that to have an application in by September 15th, really, the project should have been thought about all year long because, you know, it's not like, for the most part, you just come up with an idea.
Everybody should have a capital plan.
You know, and that's what we do with this meeting is ask people to think, you know, long-term, think out what's coming down the road, what's your goals, what's your desires? Because, you know, coming up with an idea in August or September for September 15th project, there's just so many details that pull something together. It's not discouraging anyone from doing that. I mean, you know, things happen, but, you know, really the goal of this meeting was always to get people thinking long-term.
Thanks for the suggestions.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussions for the general public forum? So please, if you don't mind. I can't remember if I said it before. If you don't mind giving your name and street.
Sure. Frank Tipton, 1 Chestnut Hill Road. And I had a question about, so my family and I, we own 1 Chestnut Hill Road. And it, by the flow chart, clearly qualifies as a historic property. It's got a Southborough Historical Commission plaque on it. It's registered in the Massachusetts Registry, et cetera. We're looking at exploratory work on structural and foundational issues with the building. And I just didn't understand. I mean, I looked through the packet, but I wasn't quite clear what happens when CPC money is potentially put toward a private structure. So obviously the Burnett House would be an example, but I don't understand that. What does it mean to have to, if someone could kind of briefly explain, and I mean, obviously the amount, I will also note that the amount of historical preservation money is low at the moment, but even, no, sorry, just waving at an earlier slide in the presentation. But, you know, depending upon the cost level, we would consider a small amount. So like, just I'd be happy to understand the private property, if a private property is eligible. I think it is, I don't know quite.
Sure. So I'm the rep from the Historical Commission on the CPC. So first thing, just in terms of the funds available, I believe the slide that we had, I won't get there now, but the slide that had those dollar figures was essentially the set aside that was specifically only for historical, which is the 10%. There is 65% or up to 65% of just kind of the general fund that can be used for any of the different projects. So if the historic project comes forward, it would be the CPC's determination about whether or not that, you know, we would want to kind of go forward with that. But
I see.
Depending on the dollar amount, there could be funds available. In terms of kind of what is expected, it's the CPC's policy pretty much that especially for buildings, that any structure that gets public investment would need to have a preservation restriction put on it, which goes with the deed on the property, so that if it's sold or anything like that, you know, the property is preserved. You can't demolish it or anything like that. So that's the main restriction, I would say. And then in terms of the actual restoration work, it's also required to do the work in accordance with the National Secretary of the Interior's standards. So there's a list of standards out there, just using historic materials, that kind of thing. So it needs to be done in a certain way, typically with a historic preservation architect or someone like that. But those are kind of the main things that I can think of anyway, that right now that would apply to a private property. Oh, and I guess the other thing would be for private properties, especially, it could be a harder lift, let's say, to get it through town meeting. So probably having a good public or a case for why public funds, what is the benefit to the community, which is part of the application as well.
I'm sorry, did you mention the preservation restriction?
I did.
Okay.
I mentioned two things. Your first step would be to, I think, your first stop would be to talk to the Historical Commission and get on their agenda and discuss it. And the other issue is there's a anti-aid amendment law in the Commonwealth. So when you're funding private properties, you have to make sure there's a public value to the funds being spent on private property. And there's a test and, it can be done, but you just need to be aware of that. And you can't spend public money for private interest without having public value benefit.
So I'm sorry, if I may, the question I had to that was, I looked at that in the handbook and it mentioned nonprofit organizations, not private owners. So I wasn't sure. Do you see what I'm saying? The anti-aid amendment mentions specifically about NGOs. So I just wasn't clear if that was the only circumstance under which the amendment applies.
I'm pretty sure the anti-aid goes to any private entity.
Okay.
So I don't know if we need to
Got it.
look at the
Well,
handbook to
Yeah.
make sure it doesn't limit and also to double check that I'm not mistaken, but I'm pretty sure the town can't
Right.
fund with
Well-
town resources a private interest that there's not a return on the value to the town.
And I'll just note that in previous cases, both for historic preservation and also things like Chestnut Hill Farm with the conservation restriction, the CPC deemed that the public benefit was the restriction on the preservation of the building, especially the facade or the exterior is the public.
That's helpful.
And same with the conservation. So the conservation restriction placed on the property, provides public value similar to the way that the preservation restriction could.
And does the conservation restriction also require any further renovation or anything like that run through the Historic Commission or the CPC again, or is that a conversation for the Historical Commission?
Probably, well, let's see, it has to be recorded with the Registry of Deeds, I think. I haven't gone
Okay.
through that process, but I think the Mass Historical Commission has to review it and they have to check off the boxes essentially.
Okay.
But I haven't actually gone through that process myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We'll follow up and clarify.
Well, yes, somebody has to hold the PR.
Yeah.
And it's not always the Mass Historical. They're the ones who approve it. So you have to find an organization that is willing to hold the preservation restriction or the conservation restriction. And then after that's put on the property or the artifact, they're the ones who have oversight of ensuring that it is adhered to.
I see. Thank you.
And yeah, I would encourage you to reach out to Historical Commission and if you're thinking of an application and we can definitely have a discussion.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone online?
Is there anyone online?
Yes, we have 4 people in the audience right now online.
If there's anyone online that again, we're still in the public forum on CPC in general. We'll be moving into the fall town meeting articles in a moment. Does anyone on the line have any questions or comments around the presentation? Raise your hand. Okay, and just a preview of things to come. We were going to be speaking with the select board member tonight, Kathy Cook, about the potential to move the tax contribution from 1% to 3% for CPC, or excuse me, CPA funding. That's obviously a topic that's, I think, got people on both sides of the fence. We move that from tonight's agenda, hopefully, to the next agenda. We haven't set that meeting date yet, and we'll obviously have to confirm with Kathy, but that will be an upcoming conversation if folks are interested and want to listen in on that. Okay, so it sounds like with that, we can close the public forum and we will move into the agenda. We don't at least for a few of these items, I can speak for the Fayetteville Park improvements. I'm going to be giving an update on behalf of Recreation. I specifically told Travis not to worry about coming tonight because we had a recreation meeting that got canceled. So we're working on rescheduling that. But I think the things I just want to reiterate before I ask the committee if they have any questions and or obviously then turn it to the public is that, you know, we continue to do the public forums, but we fully, completely understand that the parking is, you know, main concern number one for that project. And just in case anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, the Fayetteville Park improvements are enhancements to the existing Harold E. Fay Memorial Park to kind of repurpose it to include a dog park as well as a water feature, a splash pad for children. As I mentioned before, we really are very, very extremely limited at this point in town for any kind of recreational space. We have explored and kicked the bucket for every place that we could have a dog park, and this is about it. As well as the splash pad, you know, we're not going to be able to have a pool at least anytime in the near future. There's tons of costs, you know, we don't have the land, et cetera. So this is something that we've gotten extremely positive feedback from the community on, most recently at our Touch a Truck event. You know, people are really excited. However, as those who have been involved know, the parking is the number one concern. And I just want to reiterate before I give a quick update, we as the Recreation Commission would never move this forward without the support of the CPC. Again, it's very much a partnership. If the CPC felt that we can't address the concerns to make this a viable project, the Recreation would have no intention of going around them. So again, and I just spoke with Lisa the other day, and again, it's parking is the big one. So where we are with that is that we had a parking study done with the architect that we're working with, Activitas. That came in and we were going to be reviewing it. We will be reviewing it soon. The major thing that encompasses our suggestions on how we could expand and get more parking out of what we have there today. So we have already forwarded that to DPW. You know, it's our intent to hopefully revise the application and say, you know, this is what we believe we can do to secure parking. And based on, there are no studies, there are no numbers to say what's enough, right? Like there's a certain amount of assumptions that we need to bake in, which we're doing and working with Activitas. And then obviously the Historical Society is also a point of interest. We're working very closely with the select board there because, you know, there are some parking spots that are deeded for use by the park there as well. So what I just want to say to everyone is that we are very much working on this day in, day out. Our intent would be to revise the application this month with our kind of final proposal, socialize that over the summer with folks and, you know, it's really twofold. One, we would look for CPC to be satisfied and support it. And then two, it goes in front of town meeting at that point and we say, this is what we can do, you know, and let people make their decision. I'll stop there and then just go down the line and see if anybody has any questions or comments.
Not for me. Thanks.
So just, so you said the parking study came in and you anticipate being able to send that to us before the next CPC meeting?
Yeah, I think our intent was to review it. So they gave different, I actually haven't gotten to look at it in detail, but there's different options in terms of what we could do. Working with DPW, you know, we'll kind of see what we think is the best and that's what we'll bring forward. Absolutely. As well as any other relevant information. There are other steps we're taking to make sure the parking there that is there does kind of get reserved during appropriate hours for use by the park. And that's something we'll work through the select board on. So there's a few different avenues we're exploring and really parking is front and center every day. Yeah.
No questions from me.
Thank you. Claire? Okay, anyone on the line? If anyone on the line has any questions, you can raise your hand. Okay, anyone in the audience? Okay, so yeah, more to come in the next meeting. Again, we're marching towards the end of June to have as much of this updated as possible, hopefully all. With that, I'm going to turn it over, Grant, to you for the rural cemetery water tower restoration. If you don't mind giving like a brief reminder of
be
what that is and,
Very brief.
Okay.
Well, it's the potential restoration of the stone tower in the rural cemetery. It's a rollover from the last application cycle. I believe Lisa has the most recent information on this. She gave an update at the last meeting. Essentially, I don't know if I can't remember exactly what she said, but it sounded like it's heading towards the commission withdrawing it, although we
Yeah.
haven't formally withdrawn it because we haven't met. But I think Kevin is kind of exploring this other idea, which might not be compatible with CPA funds. And I don't think the big holdup for potential CPA funding was the historical consultant to take a look at the building and provide a report for the potential costs. He did take a look and gave a general estimate, but I don't believe Kevin, or I don't believe he started work on the actual report. So that's still an unknown. And I don't know if that is going to move forward or not. So essentially,
there's
It's
overlap with the rural cemetery committee, they're forming.
Oh, and then there's a new
There's
commission.
overlap with that
Yeah.
new committee too. And
so
so,
I think it's pretty stalled, just to be completely frank. But so no update from the last meeting, essentially.
any questions for Grant, online in the room or from any other committee members? Okay. Moving on, next we have the golf course irrigation. Are members of the golf course committee here tonight? Do you guys mind coming forward?
And Bill Cundiff is also.
Okay, do you mind bringing Bill over?
I can definitely do that.
Is that?
He's rejoining now. I think he's in. Yep.
Hi, do you mind saying your name and address?
Patricia Lally, 16 Woodbury Road, Southborough.
Kathy Coburn, 14 Woodbury Road, Southborough.
Thank you.
Is Bill kind of online?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm here. Hi, Bill Cundiff, DPW Superintendent.
Okay, Bill, do you want to kick us off in terms of where things sit with
Sure thing.
where you are? Thanks.
Sure thing. Maybe a month ago, Lisa and the committee had a number of questions. I've been meeting with Tony Schoner from the Golf Committee, and I prepared a response actually yesterday, and the committee should have a copy of that response. Just to quickly go through the topics. The first question was, will we be revising an application, updating the scope, and updating the budget? The answer is yes to that. The Golf Committee is planning to work with Irrigation Consulting, which is the peer review firm that reviewed the bid documents that we had prepared and came up with some value engineering suggestions to save about $160,000 on the scope. As you may recall, we put it out to bid, and the value of the bid that we got was well exceeded the funding that we had available. So we're working with them. Hopefully by next meeting for the CPC, we'll have an answer to some of those questions that's a little more solid than what we have today. The next question had to do with the original town meeting article, and do we need to change that? The answer is yes, we need to change that, primarily because the dollar amounts are not adequate. So we need to update the dollar amounts, and there was a timeline provision. So we need to adjust the schedule. The scope definition of the article should be adequate. The third question was regarding a potential booster pump station. It's really not potential. We do need a booster pump station in order to get the system to function adequately. That is about $200,000, which was not included in the original scope. The addition of that booster pump station does, however, as a component of the system, does not change the definition of what we're trying to achieve here. It's part of the irrigation system. So that's why the warrant article language does not need to change. So that design will have to be finalized as part of a bid package. I'm not sure if the golf committee wants to address the next comment regarding the golf committee projects and the revolving fund. I think it'd be more appropriate if they spoke to that.
Could you read, I don't have the questions in front of me. Do you mind reading the question itself? Just so everyone has the same context.
I think the committee just solicited feedback on what looming projects that the golf committee had on the horizon. I
Right.
did, yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I did prepare a response in conjunction with Tony Schoner. So basically, I'm not terribly familiar with the response to this item, but Tony could probably speak to it if he were here, or the committee members.
And I'll just add, I mean, I do think we'll probably have to carry this conversation over, but because to give you all a chance to review this yourselves and, come to an agreement and then to come here, because I think it will be a point of discussion in terms of what's coming from the revolving fund, what's earmarked for future years, what's coming to CPC versus the general fund. So I think that's some of where the questions are revolving around, but let me turn it over to you and add any comments you might have.
Well, I think that basically, as far as the golf course committee, we did discuss, we do have 2 projects that we've already approved the money for. It's trees and it's a fence project. Other than that, we have basically, I believe, agreed that a lot of the revolving fund, we would like, the irrigation project is the priority.
Okay.
So we would put whatever extra funding we had towards that, which, we had the current revolving fund balance is approximately 200,000. And basically, the new trees and the fencing came to approximately 24. So, I mean, the golf course is doing very well. And so we're committed as a committee to adding to whatever funding we need
Right.
to get this going. Do you know what, does that make sense?
Yeah, so
I mean, I think this is our priority. The problem is all the, I believe it went out to bid, the bid was too high. So then
Yeah.
that was in the town's hands and then we were kind of, our hands were tied. So, nobody had enough funding anywhere from it. So now
Yeah.
we're back to, and
I can be corrected, but I think a question, and I don't even think it's necessary for you, is I know there's some interest in taking money from the revolving fund and putting it towards the town's general fund. We'd obviously like to see it go to the irrigation as well. So I think that's a conversation that once the golf course committee has had a chance to review, because I'm getting that you haven't had a chance to review all of this together, you can do that. We'll have the next meeting, which I don't think we've scheduled yet, right?
No, I don't think you have, but the one thing in all of these conversations to remember is that the deadline for the new revised applications is June 30th. So
So
keep
I
that in
just-
mind. That means, work to be done between now and the 30th
Yep.
to finalize your application and budget and all of that. And this is something that's been discussed by the CPC for quite a while now.
I think we need to talk to Lisa too, unless anyone else has about how is that decision made about what's going back to CPC for the irrigation versus out of the revolving fund versus what the general fund's looking to take. I think there's that prioritization discussion that needs to take place as well.
And just Tony, I think Schoner has his hand up.
Okay, please go ahead. Tony?
Or not. Yes.
Tony, can you hear us? Okay, well.
Okay.
Oh, there he is. Oh, be careful. Oh, you're muted. He's gonna get in an accident.
I don't see him.
Well, we get Tony, Ellen, is there anything, or actually, I'm sorry, Grant, is there anything you want to add or say?
No, definitely encouraging news to hear about the revolving fund and the willingness to kind of commit that to this project. I just to be frank, my largest concern about this is the cost. So I'd be curious to see how much that can offset things, and with the new the revised budget and the new bid documents and stuff coming back up, I think I'll have a better sense at the next meeting. I guess a question for Bill, if I understood what you were saying earlier, so the new booster pump added essentially $200,000 to the to total cost, but you were able to find cost savings that pretty much offset that. So you're kind of back to where it began with the booster pump, except now you would get a booster pump. Is that?
Yeah, it's
roughly
not it's not an even swap. The booster pump actually increases the net of the project. So the cost savings deduct something off what we expect was the bid price, but the addition of the booster pump puts us not only back up to that number, but a little beyond that number.
Okay.
So I think, our preliminary estimate is about 900,000. But we do want the irrigation consultant to chime in on that and make sure we're on track with that estimate.
Okay, thank you.
Tony I saw his hand raised again. I'm not sure.
See you in the meeting? I can't see.
He's not anymore. He might have dropped off and tried to reconnect.
He's pulling over.
Okay.
So mother
Yeah.
and he's like, no. Ellen, do you want to, anything?
So thank you for putting all these responses together. This is really helpful to see. I think my one question is, there were two other points in this response document. I just wanted to see if there's anything you wanted to talk through on that, either the Sudbury Valley trustees or the Audubon International Standards.
Sure. We expect that there will be no change in the previous decision by the Sudbury Valley trustees. There is a conservation restriction on the property. We've worked closely with them. The conservation restriction specifically allows irrigation systems, as the booster pump station is the change we're concerned about. We don't expect that will deviate from their prior decision, but we will make them aware. And if they have an issue with it, we will bring that forward. So that was the fifth comment. And the last comment had to do with the Audubon International Standards. We do expect to meet those standards.
Thank you. And yeah, I think just from my perspective, I think having that conversation with the Sudbury Valley trustees and, providing that in your application, that they, just to confirm that, this does not change their view, that this is still fully within the bounds of the restriction. I think that would be helpful for the committee to see.
Katie?
Nothing for me.
Claire?
I have a question. My apologies if everybody else knows the state. When is all of this information in terms of providing a package for us to vote on? What's the date for this to be submitted? It seems to me, the reason I'm asking is there's been a lot of really good questions brought up. We're heading into summertime. It seems to me that there's a lot of information that needs to be provided before we're going to have something that we can vote on.
I'll chime in and then open it up to Bill, the committee, and the other committee. But obviously we're June 30th, and it sounds like Bill's, working on getting a lot of that information. I think the general fund we're all recognizing is a question that I'm not quite sure how we answer, but we have to decide when we're going to meet. Obviously, we're going to have to meet soon with ourselves within the next couple of weeks. That also gives other applicants the chance to come back and ask questions again before the due date itself. Claire, so you're right. It is a lot of work, but I think we're committed to trying to do so.
That's all I'm looking for, just to make sure that I wasn't missing a deadline that was extended out. Thank you.
Not yet, but I
That's
guess
the application submission deadline, right? And then we're going to work with applicants
Right.
until some other deadline. I can't remember right now.
Right, we get, just like we would
Yeah.
in September 15th, we get the application and then there's a re-review process. So we wanted to leave that
I think
time,
was July or August. if I
recognizing
recall,
it's
but-
summer, because then we have to get it to the board so they can finalize the, it's a quick time frame. Do you all have any concerns with what I just outlined in terms of next steps and trying to march towards June 30th?
We apologize for not having been here before.
Yeah.
And our former chair moved and her son was graduating and we did not get the information
Well-
right away.
Yeah,
So I don't know whether there's any leeway on that June 30th timeframe or whether it's necessary.
I think it's, Bill, and maybe you can weigh in, obviously most familiar with the work to date. I don't think we could, I think we want to see the revised application with as much of these updates in as possible. And then I think it's at that point we sit down and see where we're at, right? I can speak for recreation, for example. There's one or two things that could be a loose end, right? Maybe a select board decision, for example. At that point, I think we work with the CPC and see where we're at in terms of comfort level, like how significant is it?
which I
Does
think
anyone
we're-
have anything else they want to add to that?
Just I think that's a normal part of the process. Like you put forward the best application you can, hopefully. And then we're here, that's why we're here really, to work with you to improve the application, address any gaps or anything like that. And so hopefully, I think the deadline is there to just start our initial review and allow us enough time to do that.
I'm sure we can get the application in before the end of the month. Obviously, this will not be bid documents, but we have enough information to compile a good, solid price estimate.
Great.
Yeah, and I think the only thing I'd add to that, and that is good to hear, is that, right, so we have our June 30th deadline, followed not that long after by a September 15th deadline for the annual town meeting. And so I think especially given the size of this project and the dollar amounts that's being asked of town meeting, that if there are a significant number of loose ends or there's not as much time as you would like to communicate with the town about why this is needed, why it's coming back higher, then there is the opportunity to bring it forward in the spring. So it is a delay, but it's not a huge delay. And I think there is some benefit, just speaking personally, of having kind of all the ducks in a row, the strongest possible projects before going to town meeting. Not discouraging anyone from anything, but just.
No, I think that's not a bad thing to consider, but that's something that the golf committee will have to discuss.
Okay, so there's another component of this, which is mentioned briefly in the warrant article, but it was a bigger discussion in the application process, which the warrant article also references, as presented to the CPC, and that is the Audubon International program, getting the management plan done. And the golf course committee voted in Brenna, and we're working together, and the golf course committee. So our goal is to have the RFP to hire the consultant to create the plan done as soon as possible, because that consultant should be the one reviewing the irrigation system and communicating back to the golf course committee and the Open Space Preservation Commission and writing a report to the CPC on those attributes of the irrigation system that meet the Audubon International standards, as well as all of the other parts and components as it goes through construction. And we've got a list of, the whole base for the RFP, the qualifications, and you saw that, right? It just came out. Well, I sent it to you June 2nd, your meeting. We went over, I gave you that one, the first one, then Brianna gave edits. Now you need to approve it so that we can put the RFP out and actually hire a company to start working on this. So that's not hanging up the process, because this project, you know, is in the application. It says, do you have any outstanding projects with CPA funding? And this has been out there for a long time. So it's a great opportunity to get it done because it's going to, maybe you don't want it impacting or holding up the bigger project.
Thank you, Patty.
I'm speaking as the, both what the CPC required, as well as from the Open Space Commission, which is your partner in getting this project done. Working together really well right now, and we're hoping, but it means you'll have to approve that and get it going ASAP. So I thought actually we're going to have a meeting this morning, but you know, you probably need to find another date really soon so that can get going.
The only other thing I'll note, and it sounds like you guys were already going to do this, but in the revised application, I think it would be useful to have the amount that you're willing to commit from the revolving fund as like an offset, just so for us to have the kind of general sense of what the draw on the CPA fund will be, or CPC fund will be.
Part of that is also that the conversation has to involve the select board, because there's a limit to how much can be spent. You have way more than what is allowed to be spent in a given year, and you need to get permission to spend over that.
I think there's you probably know better than me, but I think there's an annual revolving fund limit.
75K,
75, okay.
and they have 200.
So if there's any way to do it on I don't know.
So I think we need that schedule.
Yeah,
To your
exactly.
point, that's going to be a key piece to this, I think, is what's this schedule that we all agreed to from the revolving fund, and do all parties involved agree to that?
I'm just saying, I don't think they can, I think they're limited to 75. I'm not really sure how revolving funds work, and they have 30,000, 25,000 already committed. So that means anything over the 75, you have to, you know, work with the select board for that as well.
I believe, not to muddy the waters, and I don't want to get too much into it, but we did have, I think, a similar conversation a few years ago, and I think there's a legal issue about relying on future revolving fund
This
proceeds.
isn't future, this is what's in the bank now.
Okay, never mind.
That was for bonding. We tried to do that for future
Oh,
years.
okay.
So they need to have not what's in the account now, but what's in the account as of September 15th.
Okay, thank you.
Right? So your projections, and that could be updated right up to the night of the, you know, of the town meeting. Not that you want to do that, but you know, I'm saying that amount of money that's in the account.
Okay.
But you can't put forth for like, you're going to give us money on next year's receipts, because yes, that's what we did go through and thought it was like sort of paying back.
So in that case, would it be possible, do you think, to have $75,000 each year for 3 years or 4
No,
years? Okay.
No, they can't, sorry, I wish we could, but that was what we came up with. And you definitely want to double check this, but what it is if there's a way they can, they can't pay you back. You can't, it's just not a legally, you know, we thought they could pay towards the bond.
I'm not paying back, but if the money is there and appropriated for the use, I don't know, we can talk about it later.
But I
Yeah.
think we're getting.
I wanted to
gist of
have
what
a-
We need
Yeah.
to get. to the
That's a
bottom
little
of
bit
it.
in the weeds. There might be some other mechanism, but we couldn't find it the last time around, and maybe there's a little bit different
Okay, thanks.
approach we could try.
So we'll just need to talk about like who do we want to make sure is at the next meeting to have a solid discussion. Like,
I
that we
think
have-
we'd need to reach out to Stuart Saganor probably.
I can make that call, but I think last time it turned out to be a question for town council.
Okay.
But I can get some preliminary information from him to give you at the next meeting, because that's a CPC issue to know what you're asking.
Do you think we need Brian involved at all? No, okay.
Okay, thanks.
Claire, anything else?
Yeah, thanks. We just spent 5+ minutes questioning things that obviously have to be answered. I have no doubt that Bill's number that he said that, or he can come up with by the end of June, that will be what we need. But it just seems to me, call me a simpleton, but it just seems to me there are quite a few other issues that have to get straightened out in order to be able to bring this article forward in a timely fashion. What am I missing here?
I think, again, I'll open to everyone. I think we're just at the point that we want to continue to try to move it forward. To your point, we might get to a point that says this doesn't make any sense. Like we're not going to make it. There's too many open questions at that point. It's what was suggested by Ellen and Bill kind of chimed in as like, at that point, we say, okay, what is the impact if we said we're going to pull it and go for the
Okay,
spring?
yeah.
Like what is that impact? So I don't think that's
Right.
off the table, Claire, but I think we're not willing to like put an end to it tonight and say we're not going to make it.
Okay, thanks
I
all.
look to everybody else to,
Yeah, I mean,
May I chime in briefly?
yeah,
deadline is a few weeks away still.
yeah.
Yeah,
please.
so in terms of bidding and construction, obviously, we're not going to do this during the winter months. So if we get approval at a fall town meeting, chances are we'd be out in the spring anyway. And this is the conversation I plan to have with the golf course committee. So I do think there is some value in postponing it till the spring, but that's their decision.
I think we have to give them a chance to, like, I'm not ready to make that decision for you or, like, let's give it our all, see what we can do. And worst case scenario, we push it off a few months.
And you'll also be in better shape for the spring, that you've done all this prep work that won't go to waste. You'll be more up to speed on what you need to do, and it will be a smoother road. So it won't be wasted energy on either the committee or the golf course or Bill's time.
So please.
I had a question for Bill. If we postpone it till the spring, will the numbers be the same?
That's a question for the irrigation consultant. There is some value in having off-season work to some extent, but I do know the contractor's slow period is during those summer months. There would be a sacrifice or a hit on revenue, perhaps. We don't need to get into these weeds here, but we should talk about that.
Okay.
So oh, sorry, Tim. Do you mind coming to the, sorry.
Just for your information.
What name and address? I forgot
Woodland Grove.
once at recreation and that did not go well, so.
When it comes to exceeding the withdrawal limit on a revolving fund, it takes both advisory and the selectmen to approve it. It's not just the selectmen.
Thank you.
Yeah, I knew that. Sorry, I didn't say it.
That's good. We're all learning. Looks like we did not get Tony back, so, but we're going to be meeting again. We'll not be able to lock in our next meeting date tonight. But as soon as we know it, obviously we will let you guys know, and it will be in this month. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see everyone.
You too. Great. Meeting's open. Okay, sorry about that. So do we have anyone on for the Peninsula Trail?
I don't know that we asked her to attend.
And that's fine. I can give a brief update.
They were meeting tonight.
Yeah,
they-
exactly. That's what, because we kind of had like stacked up meetings. So Rec was going to meet at 6. Kat was going to come to that. Then she had a meeting. So, and we ended up having to cancel Rec. So I think there is a conversation that we need to have between Recreation and Kat in terms of her application and whether or not Recreation will, are they on board? Will they support it? So like everybody else, we're trying to figure out our rescheduled meeting date, understanding we need it to be ASAP. So again, we'll carry it forward to the next meeting while discussions are continuing in the meantime. Any questions or comments on the Peninsula Trail?
Nope.
Claire?
Nope. Thank you.
And that brings us to the signage projects. Yeah, sorry. the signage projects. I'll start by giving I don't have an update for recreation because our meeting was canceled. So we will have an update in the next meeting after we have met. And just so folks know, to properly close out a CPA article, we need signage. And I know a lot of people can't believe we haven't closed out some things, but there's more to signage than some people appreciate. And we want to make sure we do it right and put it in the right places. So we're each working with respective committees to get that finalized and get our signs up to highlight the work that the CPA funds have done. So that's where we are with recreation. Who was working with the golf course committee?
That was me.
Okay.
So not realizing that Jennifer had moved, I sent her a few emails and then finally got caught up on your meetings, and I reached out to Tony a couple weeks ago to share some of the language that we had put together for the previous golf course signs. And so I don't know if you all have had a chance to discuss that at your meeting, but our hope really is to have a standard sign and pretty standard language, but work with each project committee or commission to just finalize really kind of the description of the project. So let me see if I can put this up on the screen. So I think just first of all, have you all as a committee had a chance to talk about this yet?
Last year, we went to the meeting about signage, two of us.
Okay.
So, I mean, and it's some actual, we posted pictures of what's in a corner of my, I mean, it was two of us, it wasn't as a committee, we didn't, but. We
Yeah.
agreed with everything.
Okay.
So,
This tends to go around in circles a little bit, and we're hoping to put a pin in some of these and get some signs up. So
Do I need to-
Examples of
Can
the
you-
signs. From different-
yes. Do you have the golf? Yeah, I can check this.
and you
Which
know,
one is it in the
already
drive?
we have some.
Where might be some?
That's okay now. I got
So.
it.
There we go.
Good.
So this is what we'd sent to Tony. And so part of our hope is that for committees like the golf course, where there've been a number of CPA funded projects, we can get to some language that honors all of those without putting up 100 different signs at the golf course. And so, we obviously have the irrigation projects, that will hopefully be upcoming. And so this language, our aim was to cover some of the past work around the parking lot, around the clubhouse, as well as the conservation restriction, with the hope that the idea of refurbishment kind of adequately captures what would happen with the irrigation system as well. So yeah, wanted to, since you're all here, which is lovely, if this language feels, great to you as well. Great.
One
Okay.
quick thing
Yes.
for me. It reads a little awkward for me, refurbishment and conservation restriction of, should it just be the refurbishment and conservation of? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's kind of on us of how clear, and this is going to come up with the library as well, of how much we want the particular restriction that's there reflected on the sign. Because the language is awkward.
It is.
And so, the sign is not meant to tell the entire story of the project to anyone who walks by. It's to acknowledge the contribution that our town has made towards things in town that we care about. So that's I think, decision for all of us.
I guess that would be my proposal to have it read refurbishment and conservation of, and then everything else would be the same. But that's just me. Other than that, I think it looks great.
I'd also run it by the CR holders, if conservation of is adequate.
Sorry, could you?
The CR holders.
Okay.
Should we, if we're going to mention conservation, do we need to run it by them? Is that what you're saying?
I think
You funded a conservation restriction, and the question I'm raising is, does saying just conservation of adequately reflect that, and I would just get their,
Okay.
just check that box.
I am open to that.
Southborough Golf Course or Southborough Golf Clubs?
Club? Okay.
Is the club the entity that runs it and the course is it's okay, so that's the official name. Okay, thanks. Is that the name that was on the warrant article? Club?
I can't recall.
I think we could look that up, but I think what really matters is what it's called.
Yeah.
And it may not have been called that when we had the first applications because
Sure.
they weren't really up and running that. I don't really know. The one from the,
That was the irrigation, right?
yeah, no, I'm talking about way before that. So I'm just saying. I remember what we did, but I don't necessarily remember the name on the application.
As long as it's the
I
correct
don't think
name,
it was named.
Yeah.
And I think you wanted to reflect the official name.
Okay, yep, sorry. My bad.
No.
Yeah. All says club.
We had projects before that.
Right before it was named. Right, it was a name.
I remember.
But did,
Tim Lit Woodland Road again. I don't want to be categorized as excessively picky. I am a citizen of Southborough. But I acknowledge that quite a number of taxpayers are not citizens of Southborough. And generally what I've seen in other signs from other communities is by the taxpayers of. And I think you ought to consider, acknowledging the fact that it's their money too.
And I'll, thank you for that. And I'll add that the library trustees, when they were discussing their language, are strongly in favor of residents of Southborough. So I don't know if that feels a little
Well,
more.
they also mentioned taxpayers and decided
Yes.
it wasn't on the agenda. I've
Yes.
also mentioned that I have been a taxpayer in Massachusetts communities where I'm not a citizen. And, it doesn't quite feel right when you're wearing that particular hat to say, well, gee, it's only the citizens who paid for it when, in my particular case, 75% of the town were non-resident taxpayers. I think if you look at the businesses around here, many of the business owners are not citizens of Southborough, but are taxpayers.
yeah, I think you need to put that on your next agenda to consider, because it makes sense to me. I mean,
We can see if it's being done elsewhere.
I think from what we've seen, residents is more common than taxpayers, but I agree. I think we can pick one of those in. Yeah.
Great. Any other questions, comments on the golf course signs? So just to wrap it up, the next meeting, we're going to finalize the wording, so you have a chance to continue it as well, or continue discussing as well.
And we're really hoping then. We appreciate you coming when you did last time.
We're getting
and coming
beat up
again.
for this.
I know, but I have sizes of signs here. We're gonna make a decision and
gonna be a
then we
great sign.
will, it's gonna be a pretty sign. We'll connect with
Best
you.
signs ever.
Yeah, the best way to hang it and where that should go, because that's not our department. But the plan is for it to have 4 holes in the corners, so then you can screw it into something. Yes, okay. So I think that is.
All right, so we will skip over the signage project for the trail. And you mentioned the library signage.
Yes. So let me bring that up as well. And just sorry, back on the trail, did we get photos from Cat about their current signs?
I have not seen any, but
didn't we decide at the last meeting to hold off on the sign for the trails because they have a new project that is more likely to be conductive to putting a sign up because they only spent a few $1,000s out of the existing project?
we'll have to revisit the minutes, it sounds like, and
There was
discuss it. with
discussion. I
Betsy
can't
or-
remember where we landed.
Yeah, I honestly, we'll have to look back, and then in the meantime, we'll be touching base with her anyways, because Travis Recreation has to speak with her, so we'll align, make sure we're on the same page before we get in the next meeting.
Cool.
So I know Claire's had a few conversations with the library trustees as well. So Claire, definitely jump in. So we have two proposed signs to go up at the library, one on the outside and one on the inside. And so the sign on the outside has to do with the restoration and preservation of the facade. And so the language that CPC originally proposed, we didn't vote on any of this. This was just kind of our starting point to bring to the library, was about the restoration and preservation of the facade funded by the citizens of Southborough. The trustees, in their conversations, like to be dropping the word preservation, again, making it a little cleaner and using residents instead of citizens. And so they are basically ready to go if we're happy with that language. They've worked in the past with Crown Trophy to get their signs made. There's currently only one sign on the facade, which you can see is pretty small. And so it's the facade recognizing that the land was donated by the Burnett family. So I think the idea is to have a brass sign out on the facade that would be potentially slightly bigger, but not huge. And just to note, there is also the sign that's attached to the Little Free Library that Rec provided them. So that's going to stay. They noted it is confusing if that it appears that the CPA funded the Little Free Library and not the rest of the work. So it is helpful to have a sign acknowledging the work in particular on the library. But if, again, we are happy with this language, then Library Director Ryan is going to get some estimates and mock-ups that have like a specific size for this, for the bronze sign for this.
I would love to say, let's do it, except for the discussion we just had about the taxpayers.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. But I mean, if we're planning to meet again before the end of June,
We need to meet
I
soon,
think-
so yeah.
but so we're then going to have a handful of signs that are ready to be printed and hung. And then I think
Yeah.
things will start rolling downhill.
It's gonna be the summer of signs.
It's the summer. There we go. I love that.
The only thing I'll note is I did just attend a 2-hour training on historic preservation versus restoration and stuff like that.
Okay.
We should just check the warrant article. Not, it doesn't really matter that much, but I think restoration is the right way to go about what happened there, but we should just make sure that it aligns with the what was written in the warrant article, which I think is probably restoration.
Okay.
So, but I'm fine with that change.
May I ask a question? Because I'm a little confused. Are we talking about just handing them a sign and hanging it up wherever they want? Or are we talking about creating the framework and the signpost and ensuring that it's installed correctly?
So I think we've talked a little bit about doing it in different ways. And I think our goal is to have, right, a standard sign that is then slightly adapted and used by everybody. And we've been talking to Franklin Bronze, who the Historical Commission uses, and going through them. And again, Claire, feel free to jump in because I know you've gone to a few of their meetings and had these discussions. They have an existing relationship with Crown Trophy. There are places in the library, and we'll see this for the interior one too, where it's logical for these signs to go. I'm a fan of process where it makes sense. Again, this is just me. And so my thought was that if they have a good plan in place and we are on board with, they're going to, get the estimate and tell us the size. We're going to have the conversation about where it's going to go. But if they have a vendor and a process and a paid director to manage this, to me, that felt fine versus us.
So
If I'm
I'm sorry, it wasn't clear. I wasn't talking about the library. You had switched over to saying we have signs that are ready to go. That wasn't in reference to the library. That's what I was referencing.
Oh, sorry. So yeah, I was,
I thought we had moved on from the library, so.
no, sorry. I would signs that will be ready to go if we can decide on residents or taxpayers. Then the golf course
Literally
sign will be ready, the library signs will be ready.
requiring.
Yeah.
Sorry. I just thought that when we're talking about that, that it also should include, like say for the trails.
Yeah.
We don't just hand them the, or
Yeah.
tell them to get the sign. It's about deciding how it's going to be, where it is.
Yes, yes. And I think that's definitely part of the conversation with the project proponents, right? And we all need to come to an agreement of that, of like, we're not going to hand you a sign and then we trust you all, but it could end up in a garage somewhere, right? So making sure we have a plan of who's going to hang it and where.
Claire has her hand raised.
Claire?
Thanks. So, the library was really very easy to work with. And here's the reason why. Brian did a very good job contacting me. He was looking for initially, what CPC was looking for or what they wanted. And I just said, you folks already have signs there that you like. One of the things that makes all the sense in the world is have some consistency. You have your outside sign and you have your inside sign. And doesn't it make sense to continue with Crown Trophy, who you had a relationship with before? And that's how we moved ahead very, very quickly. The trustees were the ones who brought up the change in verbiage from citizens to residents, and it made all the sense in the world. However, what was suggested tonight in terms of the taxpayers, as much as I hate belaboring stuff like this, I think it would really be kind of worthwhile to just run that taxpayer idea, because they are in fact taxpayers for this, and that's how these projects are funded. So that's my 2 cents on that. But the thing is that when you have, and we discussed this before, the more people you have tossing in their 2 cents, I think that to start them off with something that's a direction, and as Ellen was showing the signs in terms of how they might be looking, it kind of whittles down the choices that you give people, because there's quite a few other projects that have to go through the signage. And at the rate this is going, it's going to take a while. Thank you.
I like to think we're almost there because like you, recreation's going to be ready to go. We need to figure out where to put the volleyball one. We need to, because you don't want to have a sign right there, as we've talked about. And we just had our meeting canceled. So I appreciate what you're saying, Claire, but I'm hopefully, we're that close, and then we've got the framework, and, going forward, it's just another check mark on the plan.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will add to that. So, Franklin Bronze has been responsive, and so we haven't gotten very far down that path yet. But I think also if this process with Crown Trophy goes smoothly, we could also consider, working with them as kind of our standard vendor. I think as few people, again, to Claire's point, as few people we have involved in this, the better. So I don't think we need one vendor over here and another one over there. Instead of, we have the PVC signs versus the bronze signs. But I think if this goes well with the library, we can then, turn our attention to the other bronze signs.
Great.
And do that. Yeah, and then, okay, for the interior sign, so the main changes, again, that trustees preferred residents, so we'll settle at our meeting, if we prefer residents or taxpayers, and then just provided the correct, title of kind of the project or that area of the library. So it's a local history collection of the Southborough Library. And Ryan indicated that, so there, the wall towards the back windows that has the Southborough drug sign up there now, it has another smaller bronze-ish sign on top of this one that says not to use Zoom there, which he said he's gonna move. But so that is where he recommended placing this sign about the local history collection, because that's right next to the stacks where that collection is. So again, if we are happy with this language and settle on the residents question, and I guess also our feelings on having the library logo on there versus our proposed signs have the town seal on them, then again, he will get a estimate and mock-up from Crown Trophy.
Perfect. You and I can take it offline, but maybe we combine the order with recreation. We might get some sort of discount.
Yeah, also, but the recreation is going to be the vinyl
PVC.
ones.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
But I have progress on that too.
Okay.
Great. So any thoughts, questions, concerns on this one?
Just initial reactions, I think we should probably do the CPC logo or sorry, we don't have a logo, the seal. Just because it is the town funding it rather than the library, but other than that, I think it all sounds good.
Okay, perfect. So, great. So Claire, I'm happy to, or if you want to, get back to Ryan and let him know we are close once again, and just have this last kind of wording decision to make at our next very upcoming CPC meeting, and then we're good to go.
Thank you. Any questions on the library signage? Did you want to give the update on the PVC?
Yes. So Signorama, who was also recommended by the Historical Commission, so thank you, put together an estimate for two different signs, two different size signs, which I know we had some trouble visualizing the sizes of the signs. So Signorama also graciously lent us example signs. So this is 12 by 16. And so the mock-ups that they put together and are in our folder have kind of a bump out up here that has the logo in it and a little like decorative inside rounded corner. So they look a little bit fancier, but they have, again, the 4 holes drilled. So this is PVC. It just looks like wood. So this is the smaller version. And then this is just a lawn sign, but this would be the bigger option if we wanted to go with that. So again, this is our open space, recreation, outdoor or outdoor adjacent projects. So golf course, rec, that type of thing, where a very nice looking but less formal than a bronze sign is appropriate. So if anyone would like to see these up close, here they are, but hopefully this helps us make a decision on the size. They were both, the smaller one is $100 a sign, the bigger one is $150.
I think I personally prefer the smaller one, probably mounted on a single post for a size like that. Second one would be a double post mount, I would guess, or maybe not, but so I prefer the smaller with a single post personally, but that's just me.
And so I think too, that's part of the thought of right where each one is going. So if it's the volleyball court, do we want it on a fence versus on a post, or is it going to go
yeah.
on a wall in the clubhouse?
In
versus
general,
outside somewhere.
My
general,
suspicion is
yeah.
it will be the Richardson's fence somehow, right?
Yeah.
And have them right there because it's like.
In general, I prefer to put it on a
Yeah.
fence, but if a post is
Yeah,
needed,
if a
it's good
post
to
is
know how
needed,
many
smaller.
yeah.
Yes.
May I, at the last meeting, are you deciding this tonight?
Final, because we have to settle the taxpayer issues. So we're going to do a little
Because
more.
Lisa had an opinion and, so I'm not on the committee, but we'd always envisioned a larger one for larger spaces. And I can see where that small one is very appropriate. But if you're out in the middle of a huge conservation land, or trails. The little one's going to just get lost. But I also, the volleyball court, you don't need a big sign there. So I think there's still some, just like the library with the brass, I mean, there's, or even at the South Union School or 21 Highland, we already have a brass one on there. I mean, that's appropriate. So I think there's still some.
I think we can kind of
Decisions.
a menu, or we have a menu, like it, to
Yeah.
your point, it depends. Trails picks the bigger one, rec, where it makes sense to have the smaller ones in the fence, you know what I mean? But we've got like a kind of a set pick and choose to make your sign type of.
Yeah,
Well-
so we can go
With
with both.
our,
The committee picks and chooses.
right, with our.
And then just conversation. I mean, I'll have to say I'm impressed with the pricing because that is not what we thought it was going, like originally we're thinking there was $1,000 to put these signs in. A big sign, big frame.
I
You know.
don't think,
So
I
that's,
mean, obviously, if we go bigger than that, it'll get more expensive, and the bronze ones will be more expensive, especially as those get bigger. I think the library ones are pretty modest in size.
I think
but
that's in line with the pricing I had. I think it was
Yeah.
75 for the historical commission, which might be a bit smaller, or maybe it's the same size as that. I
I think
can't
it's
remember.
about this. I
Okay,
think in
so maybe
part
the price
because of
went up.
the,
Yeah,
the price went up a little bit and the like fancier cutting.
yeah, okay.
Not-
And then the bronze, I think are close, that's the bronze are the more expensive ones. I think it was 500 for a smaller sign. On the water tower is about 500, and then the larger national district signs, which are larger than we would do, but as you're driving through town and seeing it, those are thousands. I can't, 1,500 or something. I can't remember exactly how much those were, but yeah.
so there's, there's a range of pricing, but I was just saying, the ones you quoted, that was a nice looking sign, that the smaller one, because it had
Yeah.
been written, it didn't look like,
Wood, yeah,
it looks like wood.
it looks
Yeah.
very much.
Claire, you have your hand up?
That's great.
Sorry about that. Thank you. In the interest of moving this along, does it make sense? Because as I thought about this, well, you all have been talking, the library already had signs in place. And it seems that those of you who have been working, whether it was recreation or the golf course or whoever, some of them already have signs in place. So it seems like we should get away from like one size or two sizes fits all. And if the particular department group, whatever it is that has signs, have something already in place, which for the most part probably isn't garish, that in order to keep the theme of what they have with signs, why not just go with it, which was what I had originally talked with the library, saying, hey, you guys already have signs. You like them? They're, appropriate. Then just let's move along with it.
I hear
Just-
you, except like, even some of the things we've acknowledged tonight, like should they have the seal on it versus the library? Should they have taxpayers versus citizens? I hear you. I think we're at that point, like we will have a standard set. We're almost there. I know rec is fine with, they don't have anything set, right? So they're like, sure. It sounds like that's kind of your experience too. So I hear you. We do not want to have this conversation ever again, Claire. I think we all want to put signs.
Oh, we
to
will
bed.
have it again.
But we will.
In 2 weeks or.
It's the summer of signs, then we move on and never. But I think the point's definitely well taken. Any other, see how much we talk about signs? Any other questions or comments on signs?
I can't believe you asked that.
In fairness.
Yeah, I'll just say that on our little sign spreadsheet, where there's no other way to say it, assigns each other to think about these different projects, reach out to the committees as possible. If everyone can kind of take another look before our next meeting, and follow up, on kind of some of the details that we need in here. So one of the again, options on these, which is, again, they're all important, but we need to know, was CPA the only funding that went into a project, in which case it says this, whatever it was funded by whoever it was, versus was funded in part. So that's a note on the library signs, that one is in full, one's in part. Where it's going to be mounted to the extent possible. So then that helps us figure out if we need a post that's going to cost more. You know, I'm sure someone at the golf club can, if we're just attaching it to the wall, that's fine. If we need to dig a hole and put a post in and concrete or whatever, that's more of a process. Thank you. There's our spreadsheet. So yeah, I think we appreciate your sign off on the wording. If you have, on top of putting together this entire application, but some time to think about where it makes sense at the golf club for the sign to go up, then we can finalize that piece. Then again, we'll at least just have a handful of signs that we can move forward, and then that should help us get some momentum. We have to hope to get other ones done in the future.
Thank you, Ellen, very much, and thank you for all the work. I have a question for the committee. Well, and actually the audience. So we we went through a thorough review of the application and the handbook last year, but we agreed best practice, we would like to review it every year. I will be the first to admit I have not gone through it in detail yet. If others have, we can, if there's if there are questions on the application, we can certainly field those. I'm asking if you guys would like to have the discussion on the edits tonight, we can do that. Or since we have to meet again in 2 weeks, I just haven't had a chance to make any edits, and I don't know if anyone else has.
And are you thinking that we would withhold on a vote anyway until this is here?
Right.
Okay. I'm fine doing it at the next.
I don't expect significant changes because we went through such a thorough review, but again, we want to do it every year. You know, we actually thought of a couple of things tonight, right, to potentially add to the application. So in the interest of time, if we can all kind of go through like we would minutes, and then we can kind of go through that next meeting.
Sure.
Yeah. And I think if we can start updating the dates in there,
Right.
then at least that will be taken care of.
And then we can get it uploaded to the site, hopefully right after that.
Yeah. And I think,
In terms of uploading it, can we do it as a Word doc this year? Because I know people had
Oh, yeah.
trouble with the fillable PDFs, I think, not having enough space or replicating answers or something. Would that be possible? Okay, thanks.
That's twice we tried the fillable, and both times it was different catastrophe. And people are, you know, frustrated, and that's not what we want.
it's
What
always
you
more
want.
complicated than it should.
I think
So you
people are
tried.
as familiar with
Yeah.
PDFs as they are like. Okay. Did you have any questions on the applications or we were going to go through a review of the actual application and our handbook. We just pushed it to the next call unless you have any specific questions for your application. No, I just want to make sure. All right, well, that leaves us with the approval of minutes. I guess Bob out there for a second.
It's a question in the audience.
June 18th, 2025, handbook. Is that okay for us to use?
Yes.
Yeah.
So yes, we will be looking at it at our next meeting and probably making minor edits, if any, but that is the current version. And
We went through a really
not-
extensive review last year.
Yeah.
We just want to make sure we're kind of as a best practice,
so
refreshing it.
And if you're going for the fall town meeting,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you'd be using the old application, because the new application doesn't take effect until the next round. They'll be very similar, though.
All right, I've got to
you want me to
jump
share
out to box unless you can bring it up.
which date? We have May 20th and February. We should probably do the February one, I think.
Do you know what dates we have to approve?
Those are the two that Lisa put in the,
Oh,
Did you have it in the agenda?
yeah, not specifically, but they're in box.
I will share my screen if that works.
Yeah. I have no comments.
Me neither.
Motion to approve.
I move to approve the Community Preservation Committee meeting minutes of February 26th, 2026 at 7 p.m.
Second. Okay. Roll call vote. Grant,
Yes.
Ellen,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
and Kristen's yes. Thanks, Grant.
Mm, Am I going too fast?
No, I'd read them before. Oh, actually, can you scroll up? A little bit more. Mr. Farley. Did
Farley.
Farley, yeah.
Good catch. Oh, we can just say it and
Yeah, we can
Forget
just
it.
say it
Okay,
into the
great.
minute and they get corrected.
Okay.
So I'm assuming it might also, they noted the people present in the meeting above that. So I just, anywhere where Foley is, it should be corrected to Farley, Farley.
Great.
If everything's accurate, other than the name for section 1.
no other changes. Yeah.
Mhm.
All good. I make a motion to approve the Community Preservation Committee meeting minutes of May 20th, 2026 at 7 p.m.
Second.
Roll call vote. Grant,
Yes.
Ellen,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
Kristen's yes as well. Next meeting date, it's like hell month, we all know. I need to go home and look at the schedule for the next couple of weeks. I have no idea right now. Is anyone going on vacation out of town?
I'm going on vacation end of the month, the 20,
Like the 29th?
no, sorry,
Trying to
25th.
pick dates.
We all have to look at our calendars and obviously we need to talk to Lisa. We're just narrowing it down.
I'm out the 25th through 28th,
The 25th through the 28th.
but other than that, I'm pretty.
24th is a no. For me.
I mean, I guess I could take it virtually.
This without Lisa here too. And honestly, I have no idea what the school's schedules the next few weeks. And I'm sure you guys might be in the same boat. So what if I send out, one of the calendar survey
Yeah, that sounds good.
items and we can narrow down a date in the next few weeks?
Cool.
Next, 2 weeks.
Cool.
Next 2 weeks, because honestly, then you get into the 4th of July. I mean, then you get to June 30th
Yeah.
anyways. So we're gonna have to conduct a survey and see when in the next couple of weeks we can meet, but we'll do that, ASAP, and then we'll make sure to communicate with all of you and hopefully the dates align. All right.
Great.
So that's it. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and we adjourn at 9:09.
Do we have to vote?
Thank you, everybody.
Do we have to vote?
Oh, we do got to vote. Sorry. Roll call vote.
Reluctant, yes.
Yes. Katie.
Katie, yes. Claire?
Yes.
Kristen's yes.
Great.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much. Talk to you later, Claire.
Good night, all.
Bye.
Claire.